Welcome back in. Today we're going to be going over team breaks again. This video we tried to do a couple months ago, but it left a lot to be desired, so I decided I wanted to do it again. So this is going to be what we've learned, breaks 2.0. Now, this is a two-part video. Our next video will be us actually breaking it. We're not going to rip anything today, but we're going to go over quite a bit of this stuff. So this is going to be the team breaks that we're going over. There's different ways to do this, or to do breaks, especially like when you get into like Pokemon or other trading card games. But we're going over anything that can be split up with teams. You know, like the NBA, 30 teams, you can split them up that way. So in front of us, this is what we're going to be using as our example. We've got 6 retail blaster boxes, and we've got 6 hangers just of different products. This would be considered a budget break. It wouldn't cost you very much to get into to buy a team to buy a team in a break like this. But you know, same concept, doesn't matter. I've seen breaks go for just a couple of dollars per team. I've seen breaks go for $1,000 per team. In our example, this is a budget one. It's not going to cost. We'll go over costs in a minute, but it wouldn't cost a whole lot to get into a break like this. I don't really buy into breaks as much as I used to, but this is from my experience on what I've seen. I'm also going to give some of my opinions on when I am looking into breaks, what I'm looking for, and how I'm, deciding if it's a good deal or anything like that. And budget breaks aren't always retail boxes, but typically, these are all everything you see here is retail. But typically, if there's a hobby in a low end break, you're only getting like one box. To where something like this, we've got multiple different brands, multiple different years, and there's quite a bit here. So for the team breaks, there's really 3 different ways you can get a team. There's, pick your team, PYT. There's what I call random.org, and I'll tell you why in just a second. And then there's random teams. So I'm going to go over the first 2 really quick on what that means, but we're going to go into detail on the third one because that's the one that is, I buy into the most, and I say you find more, at least from my experience. So the first one is a pick your team, and you can also break that down into 3 different ways. The first way would be an auction style, and you win the auction, and here's our teams. You get to pick any team that's left. So if all of these teams are left, then whoever wins the auction, they can pick whatever's left.
Those would not be left.
Yeah, these would not be left in this scenario because they're 2 of the top teams in here. But
mix them up.
Yeah, we will mix them up here in a minute. But that's the idea, right? Any teams left, you get to pick whoever you want. Now, the second style is they do the auction. I don't know, she was doing something. The auction style as in just one team. So this auction is for this team. So you know exactly what team everybody's bidding for. The downside of doing it the first way is, especially after the big teams are gone, you might value a mid-tier team more than somebody else, but they value another mid-tier team. So you're bidding against each other for different teams. And although I've kind of looked at it, and it seems like the teams still go for about the same amount, but just mentally, I like it more if they're going to do it one by, an auction style for pick your team. I like it when they do it one by one, so I know who everybody's bidding for. The third style, and if I'm doing a PYT, it's typically this way, and that's just a set price for every team. So, the Raptors are a pretty good team. So they're going to be a lot more expensive than, well, not the Magic, than the Bulls, even though, in this household, the Bulls would be worth a little bit more.
To one person in this household.
That's true. It's, so this team might be 3 times the amount as this team, but you know exactly what you're going to go at. So usually when I do pick your team, especially in budget breaks like this, I'll go see what they're charging for the Thunder. And if it's not too terribly bad, yes, it's going to be one of the most expensive ones. But if it's not too terribly bad, I know exactly what I'm paying for, and I'm getting the Thunder. The second one that we're just going to skim through is typically only used for high-end or some mid-end breaks. It would be kind of silly to do it in a low-end break. And that's random.org. I call it that because that's what site they use typically. And what it is they'll sell all 30 teams before they give any teams away, or all 30 spots. Like in NBA, there's 30 teams, so there's 30 spots. They'll sell them all. It's usually for a set price. They're all, it would be too much for this break, but they're all $100 per team. Then you would get the list of the 30. You'd throw those names in random.org, do the random dice thing that they have, randomize it that many times. They'll do the same thing for the teams, the NBA teams. They'll randomize it that many times, whatever the dice say, and then whoever's at the top of the name list goes to the top or gets the team that's at the top of the team list, and you work your way down, and that's how you get your team. Again, kind of silly to do it on a low-end break. Typically, those are multi-$100 breaks per team that I see that for. The third one is the one we're going to go into, and that's more the random teams. I guess technically the other ones are random also, but this is the one we're going to be going into. And normally you'll see it in two different ways. You'll either see a spin wheel where you win the auction, they push the spin wheel, it spins around, wherever it lands on, that's your team. I don't typically like that, even though it's completely the same randomized as this, but I like to, participate a little bit, so I like picking numbers. So my example is going to be, with the cards, and typically I don't buy into the ones with the spin wheels just because I don't think they're as fun. And buying into breaks, part of why you do it is because of the fun. Go a little bit into the price here. So I don't know exactly how much this costs because some of it was gifts and some of I've just bought over time. But I just went through, and this is about $300 worth of product that's in front of me. So that's the number I'm going to look at. And when I'm buying into breaks, I always kind of figure out how much is the cost of the product. Now, obviously, the breaker got it for cheaper than me, or for more expensive than me, or whatever. It's just a average about what I think it should cost. So, like this one's about $300, and there's 30 teams. So you would start with, well, that's about $10 per team, but that's not the full cost. Realize the breakers are having to pay fees depending on what app or how they're breaking it. They're going to have to pay taxes on any of the money that comes into them, stuff like that. So something like this, and I've never done a break totally before, so I'm not 100% sure, but something like this, I would consider $14 as a pretty good start point. Anything cheaper than $14, I think I'd be getting a deal. Anything over like $18 or $17 is probably overpriced in my opinion. And I would just, go find a different breaker. But for our example, we're going to do $14. So let's say we're starting this break and we have Cave Troll and she bids $14. But then Zombie bids $15. Now somebody could outbid Zombie, but in our example, Zombie's going to win this. So let's say he wins that first thing at $15, and now he gets to pick a number. So pick a number between 1 and 30, Zombie.
10.
10. Okay, so
2010.
2010. He said 10.
I don't know. I changed my mind with a number, I was gonna say.
So anyway, so he picked 10. So we would go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he would get the Memphis Grizzlies. Not a bad team at all to get. They're definitely not a chase team, but they got John Morant, and they've got a lot of rookies, just not super big name rookies. All right. So now this team's gone. We know this team's, done for. Zombies got it. It's over there. But that's not the only options when bidding. Typically, breakers will have different levels. And I'm going to go over the most common 3. The next would be like a stasher pass. 3. So your base would be here, and that's where the auction would start. It would start at 14. But then there's a stasher pass, and it's typically a few dollars more. I've made it 18. Is that really the right number? I don't know. But that would be what I would consider as good. And what stasher pass is, well, the first card you pick, you can either stash it or you can pass it. So in scenario 2, Cave Troll here wins stasher pass, and it's at $18. So now she gets to pick a number. So pick a number.
6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So she'd get the Cavaliers. Now, this is for last year, this is a major chase team. So I would personally keep this. But because I want to show you the example here, Zombie's going to pass. Or not Zombie.
Not zombie, but
Cave,
I'll pass.
Cave Troll's going to pass. So that's out now. And now she gets to now pick another number. 1. So she gets a wizard. So that was a bad pass because she cannot get, once you pass on this first team, you can't get it again. And yeah, the Cavaliers is more of a chase team than the Wizards, but that's the risk you run. Now, if you would have pulled the Wizards first and then you passed to the Cavs, well, that would have been a good stasher pass. But you are paying a little bit more, still only getting the one team. The big key with that one is you have to remember that the first one you passed on, you've passed on it. You can't go back. So the next one we're going to go over is a pick 2, keep 1. So kind of as it says, you get to pick 2 cards, kind of like the stasher pass, but you get to see both of them, and then you get to choose. So Zombie, give me 2 numbers.
40 and 10.
Well, there's only 28 in here.
Yeah.
28 and 10.
Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is 10, and then we know 38 or 28 is this last one. So it's going to be these 2. And so for him, he would get, you're paying more. Oh, I never even put it up. So like in this scenario, it would be $21. Okay. And again, I don't know if these numbers would really line up, but it's just what I'm using. So he bid 21, he got the 2, and now he gets to choose between these 2 teams. Unlike the stasher pass, where if you pass on the first one, you're stuck with the second one. Here, he can pick whichever one. Now, it's easy. He's going to pick OKC Thunder because in both years, they're chase teams.
Yeah, you have the chance of 8 different rookies.
Yeah, you have a chance for a bazillion rookies in that one. I think it is 8, actually.
It's 8. It's 4 each year.
Yeah.
The other one, Pablo?
The other one was the Kings, and that wouldn't be a bad... That wouldn't be a bad... Oh, you want the Kings. That wouldn't be a bad one either because you do have Davion Mitchell in the old ones and you have Keegan Murray on the new ones. So, I mean, he would have been fine on either one. But for this example, we're forcing him to take OKC because...
How dare you?
To have it slightly more realistic. He's back there. How dare you? All right. So, and then the third one I'm going to go over is the pick 3, keep 2. So in this, in this scenario, we're going to say this is $36. And again, it's exactly what it is. Now, this time you're keeping 2 teams, so there's a huge jump, right? 2 normal teams would cost you, 28. But you're actually getting to pick 3, so we're putting it up to 36. And we're gonna have Cave Troll pick these ones. Now, mind you, there's only 27 cards left, so pick 3 numbers.
27, 26, and 25.
Okay, so she wants the back 3. And so the back 3 here would be the Kings, Nuggets, and Magic.
Well, I want Magic.
Yeah, this is a huge chase team. The Kings would be the other one you want.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the Nuggets.
Yeah.
But...
I mean, you have Bones, but you don't have really anything this year. And again, you have 2 decent rookies in this one.
Yeah.
So there you go. And this is a proof why like pick 3, keep 2 is kind of good. Because now you're not stuck with the Magic. Even though, or not the Magic, the Nuggets. even though they're
I
not
would
a
consider it
a
stuck with the
floor
Meta Knight.
team. I mean, we didn't really pull any floor teams. Some people might consider the Wizards a floor team, but for the most part, they're not. But oh, it fell back down. But anyway, you know, she would have picked these two, so it's actually pretty good. Oh, it fell down again.
Yeah.
So, and then you do that until all the cards are gone. And you know, sometimes it could be these, sometimes it could be going for the minimum. You know, it doesn't have to be the same thing every time. It's not like you have to bid 36 to get into the break. You could bid 14, just get your team. Somebody else could bid the 36 and get this option, right? Again, we're not breaking this today, but we are, at the end of this video, we're actually going to go through and we're going to break this into 3 groups. So each of us is going to get 10 teams. And then on our next video, we're actually going to break it and see how those teams did compared to each other. And one of the kind of the fun things about this is, and why I like doing it this way, not so much at cards, but the random.org way, or not the random.org, just the random way, is you could get a team for 14, and you could get, you know, the OKC Thunder, or the Pistons, or the Magic, right? So you got one of the chase teams. Now, you could also do a pick 3, keep 2 and get the Celtics and the Heat, which are 2 floor teams. And we'll go over the team things in a minute, but, you know, it's just kind of fun. And even saying that, these are floor teams, but who never knows? You know, you might pull an animal print, and that's the best card.
Animal print Jason Tatum.
Yeah, you could pull an animal print Jason Tatum, and that's the best card in the break. You know, I mean, it's the likelihood of the rookies that makes those chase teams. Oh, again, we'll go over that in a minute. And so you would do this until all the teams are gone. Then at that point, there's typically, most breakers will allow you to trade teams. So now you're not going to be able to trade, you know, the Celtics for the Pistons or whatever, but, you know, maybe the Celtics and the Heat, and, you know, they're both right around the same tier. And there's a Heat fan and they have the Celtics and they want to trade you because you have the Heat. I mean, stuff like that.
Can you technically still trade?
Most breakers will allow you to trade until the first pack's opened, or until they call it, but yes. I want to go over a few other things that to kind of keep in mind when you're talking about costs. One is typically the cost of the break doesn't include shipping. So always make sure you know, it's usually listed somewhere. So if you got a team for 14, it might actually be 18. But usually they're willing to combine shipping. So if you get 2 or 3 teams, it's not going to be, you know, 18 for every team. It will be 18 for the first team, and then you win another one at 14, but it's really only an extra $1 shipping, stuff like that. But when you're looking about costs, and then some other things to keep in mind. So breakers might do things a bit different than others. I would always watch breakers a few times before actually deciding to buy in. So for example, a breaker may not send their base cards, or their base vet cards anyway. And to some people, that's fine. To me, because I collect players like Ja and those, I don't really care what year they are. I want my base cards. And it may be the difference of me buying into a break or not if I learn that they don't send their base. But to other people, they don't want base. And they won't buy into breaks if the base is sent. So, you know, it's just, we're going to go over a few different things on what breakers might do. And I also wouldn't go crazy right at first when you first start buying into a break. Don't buy like, you know, 10 teams and into 5 different breaks before you actually see not the results of the cards, because that's all random. We understand that. That's not really up to the breaker. But like, how's their packaging? You know, if you've bought 10 teams and 5 different breaks, you're gonna have 5 different packages coming most likely. Well, if all their cards are coming back and they're scratched up and whatever, well, now you have to deal with it for 10 breaks or for 5 packages. I always, you know, I'll buy like 1 or 2 teams when I first decide to buy into them. Then I'll wait, you know, and that's the other thing is I've waited up to 18 days to get a break. Well, that's way too long for me. I understand it's not that big of a deal. Some people don't care, but I'm going to go to somebody that, you know, I'm going to, you know, average time is 5 to 10 days. I don't want to wait 2 to 3 weeks just to get one. Another one is, and this isn't necessarily on the breaker. They're not doing anything wrong, but what if you don't get anything? How does the breaker is the breaker going to compensate you at all? And I'm going to give you a story. And this actually happened to me. I bought into a break. I got OKC Thunder and the Warriors, and it was like a 3-box or a 4-box retail break. It was super small. Didn't really cost me a whole lot, but when it got here, I got 3 cards, all Warrior cards. I didn't get any OKC cards, and that's all they sent me was 3 base cards. So, to be honest, I've never bought in with them again. The guy who I typically go to, and again, it's been a little while since I've actually bought into him. There was one time I had a really bad break. He sent me 2 extra packs, just a handful of cards of players that he knew I collected, and a graded card. Right? Way over the value that I bought in for, but he consistently does. I mean, that was way over the top, but consistently with him, you're going to get an extra unopened pack in your box or in your package when it comes. Still not going to make up the value of the break itself, but things like that would keep me coming back. Now, it may not mean anything to you. Again, the breaker didn't do anything wrong. I know what I'm getting into, but it's just something to keep in mind. Another reason why I watch breakers before actually buying in is for shady things, like if they ever pull cards off screen before showing them, right? If somebody's consistently, they open this pack and then they do this and then they come back and then they actually go through the cards, that to me is shady. Because you only really have to swap out the first card to think it's the same pack, and stuff like that. Another one that I haven't seen, but I was told this story just recently, was a breaker that was hiding or misplacing, I don't know the right word, one of the main chase teams, if I can find them, the Rockets, in multiple breaks. Like the first one, they sold like 7 spots, and the guy finally realized, the Rockets weren't actually in there, and they're a major chase team. So now, from my understanding, the breaker offered refunds to everybody who bought already, so they could just restart it, and that would be the right thing. But then, like a week later, they realized that 2 cards were stuck together like this, and what happened to be the back card? It was the Rockets again. So, and like half that break was sold. So is he only pointing this out now because he got busted, or was it really just a mistake? I hope you understand that. Hopefully with them it was just a mistake, but stuff like that is stuff I would watch, and we'll go over reasons why prices may go up in a break. And the Rockets being one of the last 10 teams, well, that's going to up the price in a break, and we'll go over that in just a minute. The other one is personality, on how you get along. Obviously you're offended by swearing. Well, probably don't go into a breaker that likes to drop F-bombs every other second. But if that doesn't bother you, then whatever. The 2 things that I really look for is, one is knowledge. Like, I bought into soccer breaks before. I don't know a whole lot about soccer. Cave Troll really likes soccer, so we bought into breaks. I want that breaker to be able to explain to me, good teams, good players, that kind of stuff, so I can kind of have an understanding on what I'm looking for. But I also have the opposite effect, like especially if I'm buying into an NBA break, when they get super excited about, maybe it's an insert card or whatever, but it's not anything special. It's just an insert card, but they're like, "Oh, this is such a cool card," or this is such a expensive card, or like, "Oh, you just paid your your spot back, right? To me, it's false advertising, or they don't know what they're talking about. If it's $1 card, they paid $15 to get into the break, and they're like, oh, you just paid for your spot. I understand they have to hype it up, but it really bothers me. So I tend to stay away from people that do that too much. On breaks like this, as we've said, Cave Troll had, I don't remember one of your teams, but
I had the Magic.
okay, so Cave Troll had the Magic. So any Magic card that would come out of any of these would be shipped to her. But there's some things I wanted to keep you guys, or I wanted to go over real quick, just so you want to know how breakers are going to handle that. So first off, yeah, I was going to show this. So Donovan Mitchell, he plays for the Cavaliers now. If you were in a break with his rookie cards, well, you'd want the Jazz because that's the logo that's on the card, right? The Jazz. So we know this Trey Mann, it would go to OKC, where this Donovan Mitchell would go to the Jazz, even though he plays for Cleveland now. But there are some other things like, well, what if you pulled a card like this? And this isn't the greatest example, but what if you pulled a card like this? Well, there's no logo on it. There actually is a logo, and that's why it's not a great example. But we have Russell Westbrook. He's played for 3 or 4 different teams. So where does this card go? Let's say it didn't have the Wizards there or the logo on the back. Typically for an active player like this, they'll go to whatever his base card is, whatever team his base card's for. So they would go find the Russell Westbrook base card, see it's okay, or see it's the Wizards, it would go to the Wizards. But the example I want to give, and I thought I had this card and I couldn't find it, is I have a Charles Barkley one similar to this. I don't know if it's the same brand, but it's the USA whatever. And on the card, it only says USA. There is no team. He's a long retired player. He played for 3 different teams. So where does that card go to? And different breakers will do it different ways. Some will be like, well, whatever team he played the longest for. Some will be whatever team he was drafted by. The one that I don't like that I've seen breakers do is what team is he best known for? And that's because it's perspective. To me, I would say Charles Barkley is best known for the Suns, but other people would say the 76ers, and you would still have some people say the Rockets. So you just got to kind of need to know how that breaker does it. Now, again, if there is a base of him in there, typically they'll do that. Somebody like Larry Bird, it would be easy. He only played for one team. It would go to the Celtics. Another one that you might run into is a card like this. Well, you have 2 teams, the Kings and the Jazz. So where would this card go to? And now the examples I'm using, they're really cheap cards. So, whatever, even if you lost out, you probably wouldn't care too much. But what if this was a 1 of 1? Or the example I'm gonna give that actually started a fight in a stream once was a double, was Bill Walton and Luke Walton autograph. Okay. The streamer decided it was going to go to Bill Walton's team, which is the Trailblazers, because he was a better player than his son, Luke Walton. And it was the Lakers. Well, that was the Laker guy felt like that was completely unfair, and most of the stream did too. So there was a kind of a fight over it. Usually cards like this, it will go to, they'll randomize it between the 2 teams. So this one here would get randomized between whoever owned the Kings and whoever owned the Jazz. The only caveat to this one is I've seen where there's like 4 different players. And if one person owns more than 50% of the players, so if he owned 3 of the players' teams and one not, well, they would give it to the guy with the 3. So I'm kind of fine with that. I still think it should be completely randomized. But again, different streamers do it different ways. Another example would be like this college one right here. This is Dak Prescott. Now, this again is a bad example because he's always played for the same NFL team, the Cowboys. So this card would go to the Cowboys. But let's say Dak Prescott changed teams in 2020. Okay. Now, if this card was an actual college card that was printed during his rookie year or the year before, I would say, yeah, go to Dallas. But this one was actually printed, I believe, in 2020. Oh, this is 2020. So what if what if he changed teams? You know, he went from the Cowboys to whatever other team in 2019. Well, does this go to the Cowboys, which I still think it should personally, because, you know, he's in college, so it should be his first team after college. But some people might be, well, whoever he played for in 2020. It's just one of those things you just kind of have to learn your breaker on, or how your breaker decides to do it, or that breaker. So it doesn't hit you, and you're like, well, I think it should be this way. Well, they handle it different. And then the last one, for an example, that I'm sure I'm missing other ones, is one like this. This is the one of one Gary Payton that was pulled on our stream by Zombie. Well, the Seattle Supersonics isn't a team anymore. So where does this card go?
Is it not?
No, they're not. Well, this team turned into the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that's where this card would go. And that's, I've never seen it done any other way, but just so you know. And that is kind of funny. I know I've pointed it out to Cave Troll before. I don't know if I've ever pointed it out to you, Zombie. This is the same box we got the Josh Giddey from, which is OKC. So that team would have pulled 2 one-of-ones if that box was part of a break. And that's one of those things where you could have probably, if it was just a 1-box break of Illusions, you probably could have got the team for like $8 and you could have pulled 2 one-of-ones. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to go over right now is what things can cause the price to go up or down. Well, obviously, first is the product on the screen, right? You have, hoops isn't going to be something you find in breaks very often because it's a very low end. But if you get like Prism and stuff like that, that's going to sometimes cause it to go up more. Like, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for breaks. It's got Select in it just because of the Animal Chase. Things like that. Definitely, the cost of what's on there and the product that's on there, depending on what people are hunting at the time. Other things would be like, well, if you are trying to sell 30 teams and there's only 10 people in the room, well, the price might go down because you have, you're trying to sell 30 teams to 10 different people. Well, they're not going to want to do that. But if they have 100 people in the stream, well, the prices might go up, supply and demand on how that works. Newer products tend to go a little bit higher at first. So I know the new Mosaic came out. If you wait a little while and start getting into the Mosaic things, a lot of times the prices will drop on it. But people want to get into it really fast, so they're willing to pay a little bit more, and which is perfectly fine. The most common one is who's left in a break, right? When you're doing random like this, it could, you're down to, I don't know, let's say you're down to these cards, right? The Kings are a decent team, but the rest of these, you have 2 low-level ones here, you have 3 or 2 mid, and you have a very low high-end one, right? So this probably wouldn't actually affect that at all. That was a really bad example, but let's say you have 3 of the top chasers left with 5 teams left, or 10 teams left, or whatever. Well, the prices are going to go higher because your chances of pulling one of those chase teams are a lot higher. But it's going to be the same difference if these are the last 2 teams there, or if it's mostly bottom tiers at the very end. Well, they might actually have to drop this price to fill their breaks, and they know that. I've seen it plenty of times. But those are your main reasons why, you may go in there and you might be able to get teams for $14 one day, but the next time, you're having to pay $18 to get a team. Well, just take in consideration what teams are left, how many people are in there, what product's being ripped, and all that kind of stuff. So, and I think that kind of goes over the main things I want to go over today. But on our next video, we're actually going to be ripping this, but we're going to kind of do it in a break format. And we're going to, because this is kind of a lot to rip, we're actually going to pick our teams now. We're going to take turns. So we're going to break these down into 10 teams each. We're going to take turns picking teams. Obviously, this isn't realistic because it's whoever wins the auction. But we're going to just do oldest or youngest to me. And then till we each have 10 teams. Yes. And then we're going to have 10 teams by the end. The first 3 rounds, we're going to do a pick 3, keep 2. And then we're going to do a round of pick 2, keep 1, a round of stash or pass. And then the last 2 will be just your pick just whatever. We're only going to show the first round of us doing the pick 3, keep 2. So we did add a joker in here. We're going to use this as, if you get this card, you can replace it with any team that's left. Little things like that people do in breaks. But yeah, so we're only going to show this first one, and unless something happens that we think might be useful, we're just going to speed through the rest of the video. It'll just be up, and then at the very end of it, I'm going to go over the teams we have, and then on our next video, we're going to break it as if we own the teams that we pulled. So Zombie here is going to pick the first.
Number 1.
So you have.
I think you don't want number 2 or number 1.
Okay, so pick 3 numbers.
1, 2, and then
I will put those off screen.
3.
You want 1, 2, and 3?
No. I think there is 30.
Yeah, you get 30.
27.
Okay, so this would be 30. This would be 28 or 29, 28, and you said 27. So this would be 27. All right. So his first 2 teams. Wow, you pulled like 3 bottom sellers here. I mean, I would definitely do Portland as 1 because of Shaden Sharp.
How about this one? What is this one?
That's the Heat. They're pretty low. I have a little checklist over here. So yeah. So Blazers. Yeah. So Blazers definitely will be yours. And then these 2, who do you feel more lucky about?
Neither. I don't know either of those names.
Well, you have the Miami Heat or you have the Los Angeles Clippers.
Can it change them?
Not right now. This is how this works.
I like Clippers.
Okay, so he's going to take Portland and the Clippers. All right, so the Heat's going to go back in here, and we're going to shuffle them back up. Going to cut it, and now Cave Troll, pick your 3.
6, 16, and 26.
Wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, don't mess me up, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. And then he's going to get the Grizzlies, the Kings, and the Suns. Wow, these were easily these 2.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the Suns is on the list, very bottom.
Very bottom. So
I was like, I need the Grizzlies.
now, just to point out,
the Kings.
much better than the. Well, I don't know. Shaden Sharp's pretty good.
Yeah, but we have to have
But all the chase teams are still in there, and the Joker's still in there. So now Cave Troll's going to shuffle, and then
no whistle.
I know I do it a lot. She's going to shuffle and cut, and then I'm going to pick 3 numbers.
Green cut.
Well, like shuffle, and then if a breaker ever buys into their own break,
Hold
they
on.
should never pick their own numbers. So that's why I'm having her do this. I could pick my numbers, but
Oh. Okay. These cards are weird. Slippery cards.
yeah, those are super slippery cards that I got.
Did you see the bottom card?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
see
Okay.
anything. All right. So it's my turn.
Yeah.
So give me number 3 for Josh Giddey. Give me number 23 for Trey Mann. And give me the second to last.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
29.
10, 11,
Nope.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17,
Second to
18,
last,
19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
All right. No. Showing my teams.
You got the Jocko. Nope.
Well,
Mavericks, Cavaliers, and Nets.
I'm going to take the Cavs.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to take the Mavericks because of Luka. Okay. So here's a quick run through of what we got. This is zombies. We have the Heat, Celtics, Nuggets, Spurs, Magic, really big team. Lakers a good team. Warriors a good team. Knicks for his Quentin Grimes. You got both the LA teams. And the Trailblazers with Shaden Sharp. Now for Cave Trolls, got the Suns. Hornets is decent.
76ers, Hawks,
Pacers are good. Pistons are huge. Raptors are good. T-Wolves are good. Grizzlies are good. Kings are good. So that was a pretty good haul there. Brooklyn, Wizards, Jazz, I used the Joker on. Pelicans, this is the one that I super excited about having. The Bulls that we might need to make a trade with Cave Troll. Bucks, Rockets a good one. Mavericks, Cavaliers a good one. So I think it went out pretty evenly. The top three that I would consider, because we're doing multi-year, is Orlando, Detroit Pistons, and the OKC Thunder. And we each got one of those. But anyway, that's going to be it for this one. We will be actually breaking this in our next video using these teams. Bye.